let's give them another round of applause. All right, so that brings us to agenda item number 6, and that is our public input. Each month, a part of at least one regularly scheduled board meeting will be set aside for citizens to address the board through public comment. A sign-up sheet will be available in the communications office for any individual or group to indicate their desire to address the board. Disruptions by any person or persons of a public meeting will be subject to action in accordance with General Statute 143-318.17. If anyone has further questions, please refer to Nash County Public Schools Policy 2310. Speakers will be called in the order in which they signed up. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. Yielding time to other speakers is not permitted. If a speaker has written materials they would like to share, they can hand them to me and I will distribute them to board members upon coming to the podium. If a speaker is not able to present all of their information within their 3 minutes, the speaker may provide the board with additional information in writing. Additional time is not allowed under the policy. The purpose of public comment is for the board to hear from members of the public, not to engage in back and forth discussions. Per our policy, board members will not respond to speakers during the public comment section, except if clarification is needed on points made by the presenter. The board greatly values public feedback and welcomes all comments, regardless of viewpoint. However, please be reminded that children are often present at these meetings and that our public comment policy prohibits profanity, vulgarity, and personal abuse of any person. We ask that all comments be civil, respectful, and free of personal attacks. In addition, since individual school personnel matters are confidential under state law, we ask that concerns related to individual confidential personnel issues be addressed to applicable school district officials or the superintendent or through relevant policies and grievance procedures. Finally, any speaker who disrupts our public comment period or otherwise exceeds the bounds of order and decorum will be giving a warning. Continued violations may result in the speaker being ruled out of order, at which point we will move on to the next speaker. So this evening, we do have one individual signed up for public speaking, and that is Crystal Anderson. If she is here, she may come at this time to the podium.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Oftentimes when parents come to the podium, it is as though we're pointing to the board for blame. But what I see it as we're pointing to the board for fixing an issue that we have. As you control much more than some may believe, I can scream, yell, shout all I want, but it won't change the facts of what's been done. But what we can change is how we will learn from and implement better policies that are proactive and that we change administration that will hold true to these policies despite feelings. Because then the liability comes back onto the board. Just on 2/1, another arrest was made, third victim at Rocky Mount High School. I've reached out to Raleigh and it's understood that our local board can make recommendations to suspend license, but none were made. I'm standing before you now to say, do what's right. Also comb through the staff and the administration and to identify all other accomplices, because a new teacher or one that was in training should not have been alone or had access to that many students with no administration being aware if the policies were followed. Fix it because there are more students that need help. There are more teachers that are involved, and that we need to be able to never put someone in front of our students that has that much power over them. Ensure we don't rehire or fire those that are complacent to these policies. A solution that I come to offer for the future as we're going through a demerger: make sure we clean up our school systems. Look into your Rural Opportunity Institute, because many folks and many parents are not looking for mentors for their children. They're just looking for ways to deal with self. And this can be done effectively when we deal with each other. Invest in trauma resilience training for staff and students so that they can prepare for how to deal with how to deal with what walks through these doors. Silence to these issues is a damage to the public school system image. Vote your conscience, not your party. Vote your conscience, not your friend. Vote what's right for our students. We are ultimately responsible for them no matter how grown they want to be. I'm not asking anyone to advocate for my child, but what I'm asking is you advocate for the children who don't have parents who can come down and advocate for them. When I no longer can be an advocate for my patients in the hospital, when I no longer can be an advocate for their families, I learned to step down from that position.
All right, we'll now proceed to item number 7, the business items. 7.1 is donations. Dr. Ellis.
Dear board members, please accept this request for the following donation. Cooper's Elementary School received the following donation. Nash Produce gave a donation of $260 to be used for families in need.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept this donation with great appreciation.
Right, motion was made by Dr. Chavis, seconded by Board Member Thomas Bullock. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Motion carried. Thank you. Next item, 7.2, Mrs. Wallace, personnel recommendations.
Good evening, Chair Dr. Washington, Vice Chair Mr. Lamb, and other present board members. The Personnel Action Report has been shared and discussed. On behalf of Dr. Ellis, we ask your approval of the amended version of the Personnel Report at this time.
So moved.
The personnel report motion has been made by Board Member Sharp, seconded by Board Member E. Bullock. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Motion carried. Thank you, Mrs. Wallace. All right, item number 8, Administrative Services and Operations Committee report. Mr. Duncan.
Thank you, Dr. Washington. We have 2 action items coming out of Administrative Services and Operations. Just because of the nature, I'll probably not do those on a slate and have those votes done separately if that is okay with the board. First one we will do is the demerger update, specific to facility plans for the demerger going forward. I know we had a lot of discussion last week. We've had several meetings since then, so we do have Dr. Ellis and his staff. If there are questions, comments, maybe prior to the motion being made at this time, if there is any discussion, I would give the floor for just a minute or two. Hearing none, I make the motion for approval of the plan as presented.
All right, motion has been made by Board Member Duncan, seconded by Board Member Sharp. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd just like to recognize the superintendent and staff for doing a phenomenal job in communicating to the community about, as far as the demerger, from the academics to the facility. So thank you so very much for an outstanding job you guys did.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Thank you, Dr. Washington. Our next item for approval is our accounting software. Mrs. Saunders had presented at our committee meeting last week information regarding the sunset of SunPack, which is our current provider and the transition that we will be making to linked accounting software. We make a recommendation from the Administrative Services and Operations Committee for approval of this request.
Is that a motion?
I'm sorry, yeah, in the form of a motion.
Thank you. All right, motion made by Board Member Dunton, seconded by Board Member E. Bullock. For the record, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
And just our last item was information provided by Mrs. Finch regarding our need to become ADA compliant with some of the branding in the, for the Nash County Public Schools. No, our logo, yeah, but no action required at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Dunton. Next item, item number 9, Student Support Services and Operations Committee Report. Board Member Mrs. Thomas Bullock, please.
Yes, so the transportation update was presented by Mr. Byer, and there's no discussion or questions, and I will return it back to you.
Thank you. Item number 10, Academic Services and Accountability Committee, Vice Chair Lamb.
We got two things for information on the dual language placement for 2024, 2025, the career plans, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you. Policy Committee, Ms. E. Bullock.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have several policies that are up for final approval tonight, and then we have some policies that are for first read tonight. Policy number 4720, surveys of students. Policy 5210, distribution and display of non-6401/9100, ethics and the purchasing function. Policy 6430, purchasing requirements for equipment, materials, and supplies. And policy 7100, recruitment and selection of personnel. I bring these policies to the board for second read for final approval. I make a motion for final approval, excuse my words.
Is there a second? Thank you. Motion made by Board Member E. Bullock, seconded by Board Member Dunton. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Motion carried.
Our second group of policies are for first read tonight, and they are policy 7130, policy 7520, family and medical leave, policy 7730, employee conflict of interest, policy 8325, daily deposits, policy 9125, participation by minority businesses. I move that we approve.
Application, section B of the policy talks about, changing in the school dress code. You require 65% of the survey. Did we put a maximum number or minimum amount number for people that have to, reply to that survey?
No, we did not. From what I remember, our year to Attorney Weber. But the board did.
And if the question was as to changes around the percentages for surveys, that was not a part of the proposed revisions when this first came to the board in October. And if, I don't know who's scrolling on that, but if they could scroll down to where that particular provision is. It is something, I mean, the board could and take up on first read here. It's also something I could work with staff to make that change as well and bring it back to a subsequent policy committee meeting if that requires additional discussion. It looks like it's in this paragraph after subsection D. And I believe the request, if I heard it correctly, was to
It was to specify a minimum number of respondents.
right. And we could certainly bring that proposed revision back to the board if that's something that you all would like to consider in policy committee.
I thought we were having that discussion earlier, because if you only get 5 respondents back out of 400 people in the students in the school, or 100 parents, and only 5 can make a change to a policy,
The board certainly has discretion. If you would like to set a minimum response rate in the policy itself, be happy to help draft that language.
So I'll yield to the policy committee chair, as to whether or not it warrants further discussion, or if the committee is prepared to make a stated amount tonight.
I think it does warrant additional discussion, so I would propose that we discuss this at our next policy, committee meeting, which I think will be on the 26th of this month.
And I'd be happy to work with staff on drafting that, so you'll have it to review.
thank you.
Mr. Sharp, you're asking about, so, percentage of population of the school versus who takes the survey.
Parents. All right, so that brings us to item number 12. Did you table it? No. Any clarification?
Clarification,
Mr. Weber?
I thought the motion for tonight was to approve the policy as presented tonight for further discussion on the other piece as discussed about the percentages at another time, at another policy meeting, is that correct?
That's correct.
And that we vote tonight on the policy as we presented it?
Yes,
tonight.
yes, to vote on it as revised and presented at committee last week, and then as it's posted now, and then I will work with staff to bring additional changes at the next meeting.
Thank you for the clarification. In that case, I have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Further discussion?
I'd just like to say, I understand what Bill's saying, but if 400 people in the school were told that they could vote, they didn't vote, I would think that means they didn't care. So I'm just saying, they had an opportunity to vote.
All right, any further discussion? Was there?
I'm just wondering if there was a really true need to push on this tonight.
You mean to, what is your exact question, Mr. Edwards, so I can be
My
clear?
exact question, is there a true need to have a change in the policy tonight? Is there something else warranting it that we cannot go any further without it being changed right now? If we table it, what does it hurt?
It doesn't hurt anything to table it. So the committee meetings, were held as a point of discussion time. But if you have if you have additional concerns, we can certainly table, Attorney Weber.
So I would ask that the board not table consideration of the revisions that are being presented tonight.
Okay,
Those are revisions that were considered in October, and again presented in committee last week, and they are somewhat time sensitive. We can certainly work on and table discussion and review of changes related to the percentages and the surveys, but I would ask that you proceed with a motion and a vote on the changes presented tonight.
all right, in that case, I have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
No.
Motion carried. Thank you. All right, so that brings us to item number 12 on the agenda, the superintendent's report.
I just wanna make a comment, I feel like we didn't get to recognize it, and they went off to take a picture, but, it's a great problem to have when you have to have a place like this to recognize almost 70, am I right on that? 70 almost, teachers with high growth. And I wanna just thank Melissa Dancy Smith's team. I remember our first few years, we might have had a handful, and I know we're getting that big number, so I hope next year we can have it in a stadium. But just thank you, great job. We had a nice reception around 5 o'clock, so the teachers could mingle and celebrate them, and we had that night, so I just want to thank the team, that was a great job, so. Recognition, National School Counselors Month is this month, so I just want to thank counselors for all they do. We did a proclamation today recognizing school counselors, so I want to thank them. February 6th at Rocky Mount High School, IB night for parents and prospective students from 6 to 7. February 8th is our district spelling bee from 6 to 8. February 23rd is the Tar River Orchestra Classical for Kids Dunn Center from 10 to 11. And I want to thank all the parents and community members who came to these two events we had last week. I would encourage them to make sure they go online to see a lot of these answers that we've compiled on our landing page. And there'll be more meetings to come because there are still lots of questions, so thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ellis. And that brings us to our next item, the chair's report. It is February. Last week, Pennsylvania's most famous groundhog emerged from his burrow and did not see his shadow. Attaboy. Declaring that there would be an early spring. In addition to February being Black History Month, the following national days occurred during the month of February. Now I'm going to see who's woke. February 11th is Super Bowl Sunday. Go Cowboys. They'll be there in spirit. February 14th, Valentine's Day. I love everyone and you can't do a thing about it. February 17th is Random Acts of Kindness Day. February 19th is President's Day. As always, on behalf of the entire Board of Education, we appreciate all of the hard work that's being performed throughout the district. And some upcoming meetings and important dates. Our Board of Education committee meetings are February 26th at 5 p.m. Our March work session is March 4th at 5 o'clock p.m. And our March board meeting is March 4th at 6:30 p.m. That being said, if there is no further business to come before this board on this evening, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Board Member Sharp, seconded by Dr. Chavis. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Have a wonderful and safe evening.